Hi everyone, welcome to this series of tutorials on constraints. Now, we're starting off right away with the static transformation. Static transformation is a part of constraints. We're going to find those inside the node library right here. So let's go over and click on that. If you want to have an easier time looking at the constraints, which are in their own little subfolders right here, I suggest you go and click on the view icons with names so that you can get a brief description of what they do. So in this particular video, we're looking at static transformation. So let's have a look at what it does exactly. So it says use to automatically bake parent transformation for custom reset values. You can also modify node parameters to customize the transformation. So what does that mean? Well, if I look at my character right here, there are certain things that I may want to, instead of, when I'm creating my rig and rigging the entire arm here, for instance, I may not want to do the exact same thing in the other direction and having to redo the entire drawings and so on, especially if she's symmetrical. So what I can do is copy the entire arm over, flip it, and that's going to be that. I can then just use the drawing as its own thing. But then since it's a copy and I'm actually flipping it with the peg to keep the pivot information and so on, if I reset it, it's going to pop back over here. So we're going to do in this exercise a little example, pretty standard, pretty easy with the hand. So the hand is something that I often want to flip it over to the other side and keep as a unique single drawing, because what's going to happen is that if I want to clone the hand over to the other side, it is going to retain all the new drawing information that I keep in one. So that's another way that you might want to use it, to actually create a drawing in here and so that it shows up over on this side. So it's kind of a combination of two things that we're going to do right here. So to start off, I'm going to open up the timeline right here. I'm going to press O to find my hand. So I'm just going to uncollapse it right here. I can also go and find it inside of my node view, again by pressing O to find my hand, and I'm going to right click on it, select clone selected layers, drawings only. Now why am I selecting drawings only and not drawings and timing? If I select drawings and timing, every time that I switch from the drawing substitution library my hand, it is going to show the same drawing on both hands, and I may not want that. Sometimes I'll want to have two different drawings for the hands. So let's just pick drawings only, and this creates a new node right here inside of my node view. If I want to unhook it, I can just press Alt, slide it over to some place where there is no connection so that it doesn't get tangled up inside something else, and I'll just move it over to the right where my other arm is. So I already have the structure, I already have the rest of my arm, and right here I've got my hand peg, which is just a new peg that I've created, and I'm just going to connect it into the structure in the same way that I did for the other one. So you can look at the other one if you're unsure as to how to connect it. Since this is now its own thing, even though it's cloned, I can actually go and rename it. So I'm just going to call that hand back. And if I want to make sure that it works properly, you can actually move it to the side a bit, look at it, see how it's working. I can actually create a new drawing in here if I want. I can just create a new drawing. Ideally you want to create it in the same place, so instead of creating a new drawing, what I usually like to do is just duplicate it and then sketch something That's going to be close to it. Oops, that's a little big. So let's make that a little bit smaller. I would go and trace my hand. And let's go and get our select tool, get rid of the old one. Could use a bit of a cleanup, but it'll do for now. And so just to see, oh yeah, I should probably get rid of my color art right here. All right, so just to see if our little setup works, we can actually go into the library. So we've got 2 hand drawings right here. And because we cloned it, my drawing is going to be available in this one as well. So that's all working. Now we can select our hand back, and we're going to come and reposition it where we want it to be. So a good idea at the moment might be to flip that peg. So let's flip it. Let's come and reposition it about where it should be. Might want to zoom in a little bit at this point to make sure that you don't have any little creases on your model. And you don't want to worry too much about the pivot point just yet, because you're going to have to reposition it once we bake in the values from the static transformation. So at this point, I want to go over to my node library, into my constraints folder, and I'll bring in the static transformation by just sliding it into the node view right here. Now that we have that, we're going to insert it right here between the peg and the hand. Now you can do that again by pressing Alt and sliding it in, just like so. So underneath the hand peg and above the drawing. Now, if I go in the layer properties of my static transformation right here, I'll look into that, and I've got all of these specs right here, all of these tabs, and you may notice that these are all, as the node pretty much says, static. So we don't have any function buttons, so it's not going to be something that can be changed through time. This is really a static transformation. So you have your transformation positions right here, your scale, your rotation, skew, and so on. You don't need to go and input those manually, luckily. You can actually use the 2 buttons at the top right here to go and input the values from what's above it into this one right here. So we have bake immediate parents transformation, which will take just the peg above, and bake all incoming transformations, which we can use as well to bring in the values from everything above and not just the peg right here. So if you're using bake all incoming transformations, you want to be careful about if you have movement in one of the above pegs. Otherwise you could just use the parents transformation. So I'm going to select the option right here, apply it. Now that we have that, what's going to happen to our hand exactly? If I just zoom out a bit, select the hand, and it's back in the original position. Now the reason for that is I still have values inside of my peg here. So if I open up the layer properties, you can see they're all still there. So I want to reset those values. Reset the peg, selecting it, Shift R, and now it pops back into the original locations, because right now in my static transform I have all the values that were originally inside of my hand, and I can actually now go and select my rotate tool, position my pivot point about the original location where it used to be. If you've put little markers as to where they should be, you can use those. Otherwise you can just test it out, see how it works. If that's okay, then you're all set and ready to go. So you could use that on an entire arm, you could use that on the other leg as well. Anything that you would copy and flip over and you want to remain static. Right now, if I select the entire hand, Shift R, reset, nothing happens because it's as if it was drawn in that specific position. So I hope you've enjoyed this tutorial. Stay tuned for more constraints.